I'm joined today by two really great people. I normally let folks introduce themselves, but today I'm going to take a crack at it. So hopefully I do you guys some justice. First is Omer from the Snowflake team. Omer leads the cybersecurity strategy for Snowflake. Get to work with some of the great customers and partners alike, helping folks understand how to securely use Snowflake and also some of the security team benefits you can get from a platform like Snowflake. And then we're also joined by Senko here, who always becomes the star of the show. Lou has had many senior and exec titles at Q2, based in Austin, Texas. Most recently, now the Chief Availability Officer within Q2. I can't wait to dig in with you folks to get into how data can be securely used within Snowflake. A little bit about myself. Hello, James Beecham, one of the co-founders and the CTO here at ALTR. Normally in Austin, Texas. However, I'm coming to you today from sunny Florida. I'm in our engineering office in Melbourne. I got a chance to go jet skiing this morning and see some dolphins, which you don't get to do in Austin, Texas. So thank you, Chris Strutman, for taking me out there this morning. It was a very unique way to start the day. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I do like to make sure everybody can see all of our faces and everything. So I'll get rid of some of the slides here for now. Just very quickly touch on what do we mean by a security first approach. It's very easy. It's typically the opposite of what happens. Generally, security is brought into a project at the 11th hour, understaffed, under budgeted, and ultimately will cause a slowdown in your journey as you begin to use and consume data, especially within cloud data warehouses and cloud resources. So the concept or the idea behind a security first approach is even before beginning to bring data in, establish a security practice and a security pattern for what you're going to be doing once that data is in there. This used to be more of a challenge, but with modern SaaS tools and SaaS databases like Snowflake, it makes it very easy to integrate these tools together. The cost is very low. There's no code, low code platforms, such as the one that we're going to talk about today. So just make sure as we kind of go through this, think about the projects that you've had in the past and maybe how security has kind of come in, and come at the very end potentially, or even been a blocker for certain items. Starting with a security mindset and footprint will make it much easier as you grow and look to expand your data footprint in the cloud. So that's just a little precursor into what we mean by security first. Let's go ahead and jump right in with Lou. Lou, for some of the folks that maybe aren't familiar with Q2 or maybe just have brief knowledge, could you maybe just do a quick introduction of yourself and Q2 and what value you all provide for your customers?
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me this morning, James. Honored to be part of this panel. Q2 is local here in Austin, Texas. We are a mission-driven company, and we really believe the best way to help the communities that we live in, our families live in, our neighborhoods, is to really help that financial institution that's within those communities, whose own mission is to invest back into those communities. So we don't want to see a day where there's just 5 big banks that get to decide who gets a loan to buy a house, who can buy a car, who can start a business. And we really want these local and regional community banks and credit unions to really be able to obtain their mission by investing back in our where we live. Q2, we have several platforms, an online banking platform with about 20 million users and about 700 digital branches. We are the virtual bank under many of the big fintechs, Square, Credit Karma, Acorns, things like that. So 1 in 10 people who are logging on to online banking today are logging into a Q2 Power platform, and about 1/3 of the top 100 banks are powered by Q2.
Thank you for that. And I know you guys have been on a tremendous growth and scale pattern. ALTR and Q2 have been working together for a number of years now. Snowflake is just one of, I think, 6 maybe applications or products that ALTR is integrating with or has gone to production with within the Q2 world. So we've gotten a chance to watch you all grow, and it's been really amazing. As it relates to data, I know you guys have a tremendous amount. You collect a lot of information, you process a lot of information. What kind of led to the decision to get to Snowflake, and what have you seen so far with that move?
Yeah, great question. We focus so much on the products and services that we're delivering to our end customers. And, we have multiple environments in AWS, Azure, and then 2 large data centers that we deliver all these services through. But there's still Q2, the business. And there's, like any other business, we have accounting information, we have customer information, we have employee information, and then we have all these applications around those 3 ecosystems. A few years ago, we decided to really modernize and digitize that whole landscape and go through that, digital revolution. And we outsourced all that up to, best of breed third-party solutions like NetSuite and Salesforce and Workday, those kind of things. But there was a need to then consolidate this information because, of course, someone wants to run a report that has data from all this stuff. So we have all this interconnection and moving all this data back and forth, and we decided to build a data warehouse. And that data warehouse then, there's a lot of challenges when you start talking about lots of big data around trying to serve multiple masters around big, ugly reports and modeling to quick transaction type reports. And so we found all of a sudden, though we're getting great business insights and we're supporting the business in their decision making with this data warehouse, that we're starting to spend an awful lot of time trying to refactor and rescale and just deal with all this data. And our expertise trying to manage that infrastructure did not add value to our customers, our business partners. They wanted the insights, not all the technical sophistication around the infrastructure. So that's when we knew, hey, the value for us is to provide the insights, not be great at running this database, and then we look for great partners. And Snowflake, obviously, just a tremendous partner, great technology that we can leverage. So it allows us now to still to leverage a technical partner and then really focus on the business insights and partnering with the business.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I'm sure there's a number of folks here on today that probably have similar needs and desires, and that's why we've seen the tremendous rise in adoption of Snowflake in that area. It's something that kind of leads though as a secondary piece. Once you do that, is you had data siloed in multiple different places, and as you mentioned, it was these trusted and kind of leading edge SaaS vendors. As you consolidated this information into Snowflake, did it change your perspective or your mindset on securing that silo of data? Did anything go bump in the night for you, or kind of give you any pause around there? I know this is something that Omer can speak to as well, so we'll get him involved in this piece there. But Lou, just curious, kind of from your perspective, what's that been like for you?
Sure. I mean, that really drew a new need. And Snowflake's a trusted partner, and one of the reasons why we trust them is because of their security posture. So, again, we can't do anything. We're in banking, right? So we're heavily regulated, not just our products that are serving the banks and credit unions, but our company itself. So we're audited just like a bank. So we do a lot of due diligence before we even consider doing business with a partner. So, Snowflake obviously became a trusted partner there. But when you think about taking NetSuite and Salesforce and Workday and this data that we trust their SOC reports and we trust their regulated reports, but then we pull all that data out, then we just defeated all the security controls they have. And then, it was a little different when it was in my house, because then, of course, we have many, we have 7 petabytes of data from all the banks and credit unions. So we have a lot of security controls around that. But if I'm going to pick that up and give it to somebody else, that's a very rich target. You don't have to learn how to crack NetSuite and Salesforce and Workday. You just crack this and you got it all. So moving it to Snowflake, of course, they're trusted. I like their security posture. But then adding ALTR to that then really lets me sleep at night, because it just removes the data. And so now my risk profile goes way down because the data itself isn't there, and it's the same reason why we use ALTR into our product. So, our virtual branch product that the banks and credit unions use, their sensitive data is protected by ALTR. So should something happen, and we're a big target moving $2 trillion a year, should something happen where a breach happens, there's no sensitive data loss. Tokens and triple encoded gobbledygook across a blockchain infrastructure. So we're safe, and I want that same security posture that we use to protect the bank's data on our own data itself as we move it out.
It makes total sense. And what, one of the things that I've always amazed with you guys is the level of threats that you deal with. And I'll come back and mention those. Want to bring Omer in on this. So from from Snowflake's perspective, I personally agree with Lou. I think the robust security models that you all have make it very easy for customers to get safe with moving data in there. But there's still a shared responsibility, piece with any cloud service that happens there. So Omer, from your point of view and from the Snowflake's point of view, how do you all make customers feel sensitive or comfortable with sensitive data, and then still from your view, what's still needed by the customers to do to make sure that you kind of have that full coverage?
Yeah, right, James. I mean, that shared responsibility model that you mentioned is exactly what's important to keep in mind when you're embarking on this kind of journey, because Snowflake has a phenomenal security team, world-class security posture, but there's still responsibility on the customer to keep the account secure. And if a user is compromised, or if somehow some service account credentials are posted somewhere, right? We've seen cases when it comes to cloud infrastructure, where some developer accidentally posts some passwords or some secret keys out in GitHub, or it gets out there. And if that account is compromised, then there have to be controls in place on the customer side to detect that's happened and be able to remediate that quickly before the sensitive data gets out. And that's something that's important to keep in mind. I think we all are familiar with that, with the early misconception around cloud in general, that, hey, if I just put my systems up in the cloud, well, now I don't need to worry about them anymore. And we know that that's not true, right? Using the cloud does have the potential to help with security. A lot of the maybe patching responsibilities might go away, right? There are benefits, but there's still an importance in thinking about how are you going to do security right, and then doing monitoring and being able to respond. It was true for cloud infrastructure, and it's true now that kind of the data is moving to the data cloud as well.
Yeah, I think about the scary days of when S3 was kind of proliferating around, the businesses first, and just hearing every day about those misconfigured buckets and data just sitting in there. And you look at the response from AWS and Omer, it's very similar to what Snowflake has done. Is they've provided best of breed tools, but at the end of the day, customers are responsible for the data that they put in there, and they're responsible for the identities that they allow to access that data. So it's still the responsibility of the end user to make sure that information is being accessed securely and correctly. One of the things
Totally.
Yeah, one of the things that continues, to kind of plague the world, I think, are these credentialed access threats. We see them, every day within our world. But Lou, I know you guys in particular, being a banking platform, have just some staggering statistics around the credential stuffings and the kind of threats of trying to log in and brute force into passwords, to kind of set the stage for how big this problem is, and so folks can understand the magnitude of it. What do you all deal with your online banking platform, Snowflake aside for a moment, just from credentialed access threats, in general? What do you all see, and kind of what do you do to mitigate those threats?
Yeah, it's an everyday, all day long occurrence. And just to give you some numbers, last year we had 7,800 attacks on the 500 digital branches that we host. That we have ongoing attacks. About 50 of our branches are being attacked at any one time, 24/7, constantly. If you look back over 2020, we blocked 49 billion sessions that were coming in. In a 24-hour period, it's roughly about 350 million sessions that we blocked. We blocked over 95% of the traffic, almost 96% of the traffic coming into the online banking platform is actually blocked at the perimeter. So if you can imagine what a waste of the internet that we're delivering all this to the platform, and only 4% of it's actually getting through. But believe it or not, that's what we did. We have literally spent millions and millions of dollars on technology and services to get in front of this. And some of it's within the application to handle these things differently, and some of it's on the perimeter layers above it to kind of vet it out and block it from even getting into the application itself. But with credential stuffing comes fraud. And so these things are very sophisticated as they do this kind of brute force attack, and they try all these passwords. They come back, they go read the logs, they come back in a couple of months with a much more targeted list of accounts they think that it worked, and then they sell those off once they test them again to actors that come in and just operate one or two accounts and try to navigate through this. So it's not only the layers of perimeter defense that we have, but it's also application and then artificial intelligence and machine learning to really try to identify when the users are acting not normal for their behavior, and then throw up the flags and start blocking transactions that shouldn't be happening. So it's a industry plague right now.
Yeah, and hearing you talk about that, Omer, I could see from the Snowflake's perspective, how can Snowflake possibly, just as the data platform, the data cloud itself, understand what a client's needs are or uses are like, and so it makes perfect sense as to how that responsibility, within that shared matrix that we just discussed, still rests on the shoulders of those end clients. It is nice though that there is a glimmer of hope, and we will do a demonstration here for y'all today live about this, helping with credentialed access threats to Snowflake specifically. But before we get in there, Omer, could you maybe talk a little bit about some of the other partners like ALTR? And again, we'll show some of this as well in just a moment, but the benefits of collecting data, sharing information for security teams, more so than just standard login events or other things, but being able to have a security data lake like effect of information. What are you seeing is kind of helping with those areas, and how is Snowflake helping to kind of augment or supplement some of those tools?
Yeah, I think cybersecurity in general has really become a data problem. And security teams, in order to do their job effectively, they want to have a 360. They want to understand everything that's happening, and that might mean logs from the cloud infrastructure, might mean alerts from the laptops, and it definitely includes kind of a profile of what are the users doing with the sensitive data, right? And what Snowflake provides, because of our architecture, how we separate storage from compute, the native support for semi-structured data, and the data marketplace, we have all the elements to enable that 360, so that security teams can get all the data into one place. And then it's just a matter of what questions do they want to ask. And there's some great data sets on the marketplace that we should check out around geolocation. So if I have an IP address, can I tell where it's actually coming from? And threat intelligence, right? What do we know about the people that are accessing our systems? Or I think even more interestingly, what do we know about those specific individuals that are maybe accessing a ton of sensitive data, right? And can we treat them differently? And can we take that into account when we're doing our threat detection and response? So it really becomes kind of an analytics problem, and that's what Snowflake knows how to help with.
Yeah, the treat folks differently piece, I think, resonates with a lot of people. When I hear that, I think of a data scientist versus a DBA, for example, right? Somebody that gets to utilize a lot of the built-in security functions to limit their access. Data scientists, there's RBAC models, there's views. Somebody does a great job of kind of creating a safe world for those folks to get in there. But DBAs typically have elevated access and more permissions than most, and so I think it's really good, Omer, that you separate those two things there. And we will get into a little bit more about that as we get into a demonstration piece of what this looks like. So Lou, I think the last thing kind of wanted to ask you, and then we'll again set up some showcasing here, is from the on-prem to the cloud world, have you been able to translate some of your security practices? I know you mentioned you guys have spent a lot of money and time working on this. You have a really robust system. Have you been able to translate some techniques, or has it caused you to kind of reevaluate and look for different partners or different tools? What's that been like for you, just as it relates to security, directly?
That's a great lead in. Now with the actual surface protected with Snowflake and ALTR, I still have the exposure to the credential access. And so when you think about, we have 1,800 employees all over the world logging in from home, obviously with COVID, logging in from home, so unsecured networks and unsecured places, and they log in. We have layers and layers of endpoint protection that we're kind of over the top of that stuff, and then multi-factor into a corporate network that doesn't have any assets in there, that they're all moved out now, and then now our data warehouse is now in Snowflake, so there's no assets to get. And then you have to multi-factor again into a third party, either it's Workday or it's a hosting environment. So we have layers and layers. So we've been working on this, I know it's trendy to say, but this zero trust networking angle for many years. We were working on it before it was called zero trust. And so really the risk for me, it's moving to Snowflake did not cause us more work because we're already designed in this manner to really trust nothing. And when I say zero trust, it's really more about continuous authentication and implicit trust. So once you log into your laptop, we know who you are, but we make you multi-factor again into the network, and we know who you are, but we make you log in again to get to anything that you want to use. And so it's designed to fail. And when you think about ransomware being just a big attack surface now, and we go through all this security training with our employees, and we're real happy when only 5 of them click the phony phishing email. But that's still 5 people that could have locked us out of, caused major damage. And the ransomware today doesn't just lock up your data and then you have to pay to get it unlocked. And most people have strategies of how to recover now from that. But they take your data. And so you're paying them not to let it out. And the locking and unlocking is just a secondary cause now. And so you have to have your strategies in place to prevent ransomware from someone bringing ransomware in and your endpoints failing, and then you brought it into the network and those fail, and then it gets into your product or get into your data and those fail. So actually, in that respect, Snowflake then, by taking our data warehouse and putting it up in a different location with another set of credentials I have to get to, actually makes it more secure and more protected from those kind of corporate outbreaks of ransomware. So, so it both actually in as an extension of that kind of zero trust network.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I always enjoy doing the phishing tests here at Alter. We are a cybersecurity company focused on data security. We take it very seriously. We're a level 1 PCI service provider, SOC 2, Type 2, all those things. I'm still amazed at the results of the phishing tests, and I'm not discluding myself from that amazement either. So it's really tricky out there. Omer, I did want to.
And James, just on that, I think because we're talking a lot about kind of the human element, which is definitely important. But as we're thinking about kind of security first and how do we architect the kind of this whole strategy, right? The service accounts, the automated accounts, those are also worth thinking about, right? And they're not going to get phished, but they can get out in different ways. And we saw, like with the big Capital One breach that happened in AWS, right? There was a server vulnerability and the service account was compromised. And those service accounts, the good thing about them is hopefully you've architected the applications in such a way that they have pretty standard kind of operations. They ask certain questions all the time, but they're only a certain kind of question. And so if you do have kind of this perspective into who's doing what, if that service account, that automated user all of a sudden starts downloading a whole bunch of data from a whole bunch of different areas, right? That should trip alarms and get the security team involved.
Yeah, Omer, that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. And especially those types of accounts that you would hook up with a Snowflake, again, being kind of a SaaS-based database, typically working with SaaS-based analytics tools, SaaS-based ETL providers, being able to kind of control those accesses is very important. So let's do this. Let me just do a quick kind of flyover of the Alter solution about how with Lou and Q2 we've taken this security first approach. I do have one diagram that I wanted to share just so folks could get a good understanding of what this architecture looks like here. So I'll keep it in this view just so we can stay quickly. But when we mentioned security first before, I think some of the precursors to that are it can't be cumbersome to use, it can't be hard to hook up, it can't cost a lot, and it can't inject a lot of latency into your world. Those are, as somebody that's been fighting the security battle for years now, those are always the complaints and the pushbacks that we get to adding security, in the beginning. And then, obviously money is another one there. And so we're very, very happy to have been working closely with Snowflake, Omer, his team, Vikas, all these folks to build a solution that kind of crosses off all those objections for needing to use security up front, especially as it relates to the credentialed access threats, because it's something that, again, falls squarely on the shoulder of the customer, but also is very difficult to work with. So the diagram is very simple. Alter integrates directly with Snowflake using their best of breed column security methods. Everything that Alter does is configured in real time by the SaaS platform. As you'll see here in the demonstration, the latency is extremely low. The integration is very powerful. We'll be able to stop a credentialed access threat right here in real time on this. But I think more importantly, too, to Omer's point earlier, all the information that ALTR collects, generates, is shared directly back out into the Snowflake data marketplace for folks to be able to bring in and use and to analyze. And so we'll touch on that in just a moment here about this. But let me go ahead and set up this very quick demonstration here. And what I'm going to show you should all look very familiar to everybody. It is the world famous Snowflake web UI here. And I've got my data science role. I have a number of other roles here, but we'll focus on this data science role. I've got my extra small demo warehouse here. Let me go ahead and wake it up by going to grab some data. But what I want to focus on here for the demonstration is we'll show how through supplementing and leveraging some of the RBAC models that Snowflake provides, being able to bolt this ALTR solution on right on top without having to change the way that you access data or really add anything else. There's no code involved here. So we can see our data science user is up and running. They're able to access information. There would be nothing stopping me from increasing this limit number or running this query over and over again, which is exactly the credential threat that we're speaking of. So whether this user is malicious or the credentials were stolen or compromised or taken from somewhere else, this user has been given access to these data fields by the Snowflake platform, and rightfully so, because the data science user needs to use this data. To get into the ALTR side of this and show you how quick and easy it is to stop these credential threats, I'll just get into my ALTR instance here quickly, and we'll just show you very fast how this all works. Configuration is really easy. You get a dashboard view of what's happening. Just simply add your Snowflake database into the ALTR system. Tell us about which data fields you are concerned with. The nice thing about a SaaS-based platform like ALTR is this can all be automated, for example, by data governance and privacy tools like OneTrust or Calibra. So even the setup for this can be automatic as well. And what I really want to focus on are what we call thresholds here. And this is how we can stop credential threats without any code, without you having to change anything in here. So I've gone ahead and I've made a rule that's disabled right now. This rule is my credentialed access threat rule. I'm going to block access to data if there's a request over 500 times per minute. This is just an example threshold here. We have folks that use time window. So Omer, to your point about service accounts and other things, if you have reports that are run at certain times of the day or night that are scheduled, you can lock down those credentials or those roles to only be able to run at those certain times, but also access rate from an end user perspective. I'm going to put this rule set over my data science columns, as we saw there just before. It was first name, last name, email address, I think some things like that. And I'm going to be watching and tracking my data science users. And that's all it is. It's just those very quick few steps. I can go ahead and turn on this credentialed access threat policy. So now we're watching in real time as data is being consumed. So I'm still my data scientist here. I'm going to go ahead and run in here. And as I'm running this too, I forgot to mention, if you have questions or comments, please continue to add them into the Q&A session. We'd be happy to answer some questions for you all as well. So I went ahead and ran this query again. I was the same data scientist, but my limit of 1,000 here is more than 500. And so you can see the ALTR governance policy has kicked in here and has stopped that data access from happening. And again, I'm in the web UI here of this. So very sophisticated piece of technology, but the integration is so simple and so straightforward that it makes it very easy for folks to adapt this and bring on. We have folks getting to production with this security in days as opposed to weeks or months. Something that I think is really important to focus on as well is back to Omer's point about security being a data problem now. Everything that ALTR does, from a tracking sensitive data access to blocking to threat mitigation, all is recorded and distributed and provided back into the Snowflake data marketplace. So you can see there's a number of security providers in here. ALTR is one of them. And again, our focus is on those credentialed access threats. So you can see our listing here. You can very easily subscribe to this once you become a Snowflake customer and be able to bring this information back in. So let me just give you an example of what some of this information looks like. I have to change my role here. And then I want to ask Omer to kind of give us an extended value that can be grabbed from this type of information. So right now, I'm just showing kind of a history of some query information that Alter has been providing within Snowflake. It's my user, it's multiple different tables, columns, times a day, things like that. But Omer, you had some really good points around kind of combining this with some of the other providers that are out there. I think you mentioned the IP info folks, and then I know the other side, the Red Sky Alliance people are doing really good at helping that. So maybe give us some examples as to what this could look like to kind of extend just the single data point that Alter has.
Yeah, so I think it's all about visibility, right? And Alter, through that data marketplace share, can provide great visibility into what users are doing in the customer Snowflake, but then to enrich that with geolocation data, anonymizer data. Like, it's probably safe to say that you don't want any of your users working from behind a Tor anonymizer, right? These are services that cyber criminals can use to hide their identity, but it could also be a dead giveaway that an account has been compromised. And so if you're comparing the actions of your Snowflake users to this data set, well, now you can kind of surface those users that may have been compromised, right? If somebody's selecting a bunch of sensitive records, but they're doing it behind an anonymizer, that's something that the security team should want to know about, right? And this is an easy way to get the security team introduced to Snowflake. The opportunity is much broader because security teams are struggling with data scale, complexity for all their different threat detection and incident response needs. And that's where we see customers now putting in data from systems like CrowdStrike and putting that into Snowflake. And then the opportunities to combine these data sets to have even more effective detections, right? So you can have like threat intelligence here in the marketplace from providers like Red Sky Alliance. If you have your CrowdStrike alerts in the same place as this and the Alter data, there's just great detections that you can have. And it can also help route the security team to act on the most important things first. Like, for example, if there's a CrowdStrike alert about a certain laptop, well, who does that laptop belong to? If Alter's data is telling me that this is a user that's doing really sensitive activity in my data platform, they're touching customer data, and now their laptop has a CrowdStrike alert, well, that's a higher priority than if it was somebody that doesn't have that level of access or isn't using that access in those ways. So building that 360 in Snowflake, this idea of a security data lake, is going to help to both protect the Snowflake instance itself, but then also the broader organization.
And Lou, I know you guys use a number of security incident event management tools. I saw Omer do a post or speak about something that really kind of hit home for me, which is, you know, driving the value of those tools, not from a data collection or an events per second type of value draw, but getting value from the queries that you get to run, Omer. I think the way that you put it, made perfect sense, that, pricing these types of tools to the value they provide, which is when you want to run the queries and get the insights versus pricing them on just number of events or data collected, sometimes could lead to cutting off of those things. Lou, I have to imagine you guys are pulling in millions and millions of events. Is it per second, per hour, per day? I mean, how much are you collecting through your SIM tool or your SIEM tools?
If you ask the executives, it's millions of dollars I'm spending a minute a day. So, I mean, seriously, and it's always this kind of you're at risk of what you didn't keep, of what you didn't track, of what you didn't have. So you're always on your heels going, I have to take everything. And when you think about how often, today's a great day. I'm assuming we're not going to get breached today, but we had collected how many endpoints, how many syslogs, how many sessions, we're collecting all this stuff. I'm going to store it for 6 months and probably never, ever use it. But if I didn't collect it and something happened and I needed it in a week, it's all just downside for me, right? So again, I think what Omer showed was a way to use some of these things, and then to your point, pay for them as you need them is a great answer to just collecting everything and having to pay for in case you need it. Because the reality is, in case, it's like DR, right? DR is one of these things where you hope you never have to have it, but boy, you better have it when you need it. And that model of building 2 of everything and just having half of it not being used, that's not a financially scalable model. So, when you look at having to do things differently, I think I love that kind of angle around you can populate, enrich the data when you need it.
Yeah, everybody's struggling with this, and I'm excited by what Snowflake's architecture with the separation of storage and compute is making possible, the limitations it removes, and this has become one of our fastest growing use cases, this idea of using Snowflake as a security data lake. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, it's good. So I think we'll wrap up here. I just have a couple of other bullet points. Lou, I forgot to mention you have the coolest work from home office. I saw one of the questions drop in there. Was about that. I think folks are trying to know how to get pit passes for there. I have to imagine they're pretty exclusive, but
no. If you know how to turn a wrench, I need the help. Clearly, that motor should be in that car, and that 4-year-old needs help with that power wheel. So I'll take all the help I can get, frankly.
Yep. That's the power wheel part of that is what's exciting. So just to kind of wrap up for folks here, and again, thank you everybody for joining us today. It's been a really nice session. The security first approach is really about removing a lot of the barriers to security. Again, the barriers that we continue to hear are it's hard to hook this up. With things like Snowflake and ALTR, that barrier is completely removed. There is no infrastructure, there's no proxies, there's no software, just get credentials for ALTR, hook it up to your Snowflake, and begin to use it. The latency concerns we always hear from security, especially from the product folks, Lou, as you mentioned, always trying to go to the moon and do it in less time than they did before. Every day we focus on latency and throughput, and being a SaaS-based product, cloud native scale, we get to work with Snowflake directly and match their delivery model with our security model, and makes for a very easy rollout. And then cost too, Lou, I know you've mentioned cost a number of times here. Making security cheap and easy to use is the only way that we're going to solve these problems. So being a SaaS vendor, ALTR gets to pass a lot of the savings on the economies of scale there. So Lou, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of to wrapping up here, I know we've already begun our Snowflake project together, and we, as I mentioned before, we have a number of other projects in production. But how's it going? Are you feeling better? Are you happy with kind of the progress so far? And what would you say to folks that maybe are still on the fence about kind of hooking up a tool like ALTR to Snowflake?
Yeah, great summary here is my job is to make sure that we have the tools and the scale and the cost profile to deliver value to the business. And that doesn't mean I always have to go build it and have to go figure it out. And really part of my job now is really to find the right partners that have the right kind of trajectory and thought leadership in this space. So I don't have to be the experts of these things. I can just trust my partners are helping lead. They're ahead of where I need to be, and they're going to keep going because that's their business space. So partner with people like Snowflake, like ALTR, that I can be trusted. I look smart by just being, having them in the room and them on my resume as people I work with. And we do more of that, right? And when you think about this, who today manages their own Exchange server? Nobody. But
right.
Back, 7 years ago, when we first picked up our Exchange server and gave it up to the cloud, people thought we were crazy. And now, I could never run that as well as at scale, as securely, as much uptime as Microsoft can. So when I look at that kind of just use case, that fits right here where I'm delivering value to the business. That's what they care about. And partners like Snowflake and ALTR are just brands I'm proud to be part of. So again, thanks for the invite here. And if I can share the story with anybody that's participating, if they want to talk to me after, just let me know, and I'm available to talk more details.
Yeah, Lou, appreciate that. And one of the things you just said made me think about a Gartner post that I saw that said, the discussion has been changing from security of the cloud to security in the cloud. And that little one word difference of versus in implies action to me. So no longer are we talking about is the cloud safe? It's talking about how to be safe in the cloud because of all the benefits that you see from there. Omer, there was a question around folks that maybe are already using traditional SIEM tools that are kind of now curious about the joining of data and bringing it together. What's an easy 1, 2, 3 step for them to do? Let's assume they're already Snowflake customers, but using it for maybe more traditional analytic workloads or other things. So what would you tell some of the security teams is kind of a good quick start guide to begin to kind of enhance that data analytics as it relates to security?
Yeah, I would reach out to your Snowflake account team and just mention that this is something that you want to hear more about. And we have a lot of great material. We ourselves use this approach to secure Snowflake. So if you're using Snowflake, if you trust us with your data, you're already kind of bought into this approach, because it's how we secure Snowflake. But it can definitely be something that we share with you, how we do it, how other customers are doing it today, and how this can be kind of an easy thing to do. And it doesn't need to be necessarily a SIM replacement, but definitely using the right tool for the job is the way moving forward. So just reach out to your Snowflake account team, and they'll be able to set up a session to deep dive on this.
Great. Well, guys, thank you so much. Lou, every time we talk, I'm jealous of your job, but I also know how stressful it is. And that's what keeps us, working as hard as we do to make sure that we're taking care of you guys and let you focus on your customers. And I know Omer and his team are constantly thinking about how to make sure that data is safe and you can access it in lots of ways. So we are inspired by what you all do, especially the mission that Q2 has to help communities maintain communities. And just know that we here at ALTR work hard for you every day, as I know Omer and his team do as well. So again, for the folks listening, there will be a recording sent out here if you want to share it around. I'm James at altar.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well if you have any other questions or comments. But Lou, thank you. Omer, thank you all very much. Hopefully you have a great rest of your day, and really looking forward to continuing working with you, Lou.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.